Hello, everybody, and welcome to Nathan on Shuffle and to my latest episode here of New Album Spotlight, the show where I put the spotlight on new album in progressive rock that I think you guys will love if you have similar tastes as me, showcasing that music isn't dead, that it's very alive, and there's great progressive rock releases coming out now. It wasn't all just music from the 70s that died out, and today's music is just all trash and terrible. No, there's great stuff if you really search the underground, if you really find these hidden gems. That's what I'm trying to uncover for you guys, and I hope you appreciate that. For today, I have a really excellent one that's been really impressing me and is rising up the ranks of one of my favorite albums of the year. And this is Edensong and their album Our Road to Dust. And I wanted to showcase, I have a copy of it here on physical. I have the CD, Our Road to Rust. So this is a fantastic album that I strongly recommend to you guys. I got my copy on Laser CD, so check out lasercd.com. I believe they're on that label, Laser's Edge. So fantastic release from a really cool eclectic group of musicians. I believe this is their first album as a quartet, when before they've had a bigger lineup, but they've kind of shortened their lineup and are forging ahead as a quartet. And I really love their sound. It's unique in progressive rock to me because it blends like eclectic prog rock with a little bit of a folky angle, but also a bit of a prog metal edge as well, making it sound very contemporary and modern, even though it has a lot of this DNA from the classic prog artists. I hear a bit of Jethro Tull, of course, with a lot of flute work throughout the album. I also hear a bit of Dream Theater and that kind of side of the coin and equation. I also hear a little bit of Gentle Giant and some of their kind of quirkier, more strange passages that take these complex rhythms and arrangements but make it sound very pleasing to the ear and are just really fun to listen to. So it's a really great blend and a really great aesthetic that really appeals to me. Those are bands that I'm massively a fan of, and they put their own stamp on the music. That's what I really love about these artists, is when they're able to infuse their own personality and just sound like a pastiche of everything that's come before. And I think they step out on their own excellently well. Another big highlight of the record for me is the vocal harmonies and vocal arrangements. There's just some really beautiful, background singers and swelling choruses and stuff that sounds almost like the Fleet Foxes and their blends and ways that they bring this great vocal harmony to the equation. And you get that and more here on this record. It's a really diverse and cool and creative record. And it's fairly short. It's only a little over 40 minutes long, so you get in and out pretty quickly. And to me, that means I want to press repeat and listen all over again. So it doesn't overstay its welcome. It's perfectly composed to just be this great burst of fantastic progressive rock. And I absolutely love it. It begins with Of a Sense. This is a minute and a half, like sweetly played acoustic guitar passage, a blend of classical and folk influences in this really short track. Before we get this really burst of music with the illusion of permanence, almost kind of shocked me when I first heard it, because you hear this really sweetly played acoustic guitar before this just comes out of nowhere with this really hard-hitting, harsh King Crimson style-esque riff with a bit of a metal crunch, some sinister whispery vocals, bringing a very darker tinged edge to this track. Great balance of prog metal leanings, but with an eclectic prog spirit, some folky flutes for good measure. Love the vocal harmonies. Very hard-hitting yet eclectic and proggy at the same time. Fantastic burst of energy, some furious flute work, and strong harmonies. The ending's a bit more atmospheric with these cool drum washes and melodic bass playing. So it's a fantastic track to get you into their world and get you into their orbit, and I really appreciated that. Even if it was a bit jarring, moving from this sweet acoustic passage into this kind of heavier track right off the bat. And I want to highlight the musicians before I get too deep into the record also. James Byron Schoen plays guitars and does vocals. T.D. Ben Towers on bass and vocals. Barry Seraph on flutes. And Nick DiGregorio on drums and percussion is the lineup here. And they're all fantastic in their own right. I love some of the cool, sick bass grooves that accompany these tracks. I think it works really excellently. And there's some really furious drum playing as well. But they're able to take a step back when they need to, when the song needs a bit more space and a bit more atmosphere. Love all the vocal work, as I've mentioned. There's some really great blends and vocal harmonies. Apparently that's done by James and TD. And some fantastic guitars. I love the acoustic playing, but there's also some more metallic riffs and things that bring a bit more of a crunch and energy to the equation. The third track on the record is These Old Wounds. We get another big burst of sound here in a thick bass tone, some acoustic guitar and flute, giving more of a mysterious vibe before you get a hard-hitting chorus and some beautiful atmosphere blending harmonies. Like I mentioned, that Fleet Foxes vibe and this kind of folkier vocal arrangement. Prominent bass line leads to a hard-hitting instrumental full of heavy guitars and flute work on this track. It's just a really excellent one and a great 1-2 punch to get you into the album and excited, and it has a lot of energy and verve to it. Black Crow is one of the most interesting tracks. It stands out because it's really different than anything else on the record. Begins with these a cappella vocals swirling around your head brilliantly, almost this kind of poppy electronica element with an electronic beat and these catchy vocal hooks, and turns into this kind of cool, folky, upbeat vibe with picking acoustic guitar and flute work. It's just a really excellent blend of pop music and prog folk music that's blended expertly well, and it's just an excellent, unique tune that's unlike anything I hear on other releases. I love their embrace of this kind of electronica poppy element, but it doesn't sacrifice its core musicality and their uniqueness that they bring on display. I love the ending with some beautiful acoustic guitar as well, just making for a really excellent track. Then we get into Hall of Statues. Another atmospheric opening leading to some fast-paced drum work and persistent vocals. Love the beautiful vocal sections here, some bright acoustic guitar picking, lush atmospherics. Love how the song is able to add some bite when it needs to with some heavier guitar tones, but doesn't lose that like flittering flute and vocal work. I love the break that they have, this instrumental break with some focus on flute work and a more atmospheric flavor, building to this lush wall of sound, fitting perfectly in their musical wheelhouse on this record. Just a really great spotlighted track and a great example of what you can expect on the record, a great early single. Book of Complaints is a more straightforward rock track. It's only 3.5 minute long track, but it has a really upbeat pace, some excellent vocal hooks. This is one of the catchiest tracks. I love the pre-chorus where we get this kind of fun, bouncy melody and really great clever melodic hooks that really bring you into the song and are fun to repeatedly listen to over and over. Of a Sense Reprise is giving the flutes center stage for a bit of an off-kilter solo showcase, kind of a little bit avant-garde and strange in the way that they sound, giving this kind of eerie flavor. Before we get into Wicker Basked, hard-hitting instrumental work with some big syncopated stabs, off-kilter, almost Middle Eastern sounds. Folky elements play fantastically off of each other as flute and strings are given a chance for different focus. Excellent instrumental. I love this. It brings to mind some of the best of Gentle Giant and also Jethro Tull with some added metallic edge. It ramps up in heaviness as it goes along, bringing some really deep bass tones and distorted guitars by the end of the track. Really exciting and a great placement before we get into kind of the epic ending of the album, the title track, Our Road to Dust, where they lighten things up at the beginning with some vocals and some acoustic guitar strumming and added atmosphere. You bring in the flute and prominent drum and bass work, keeping this delicate pastoral feel before the heavy guitars enter the fray, and we get this big, like, chanted melody that's epic and extremely catchy before it gets played instrumentally through the flutes. This is just such an earworm and a great melody that sticks in your brain and makes for this, like, epic ending. We get almost a Gilmour-esque slow-building guitar, some more folky instrumentation, and that epic build of the main theme, first played quietly on flute and acoustic guitars and things before the vocal chants come through, and it just ramps up in energy and power, giving this really epic conclusion to this fantastic record. So I absolutely adore this record. The influences are right up my alley. Like I mentioned, of course, you hear a bit of Jethro Tull. I think Ian Anderson even has praised this band in the past as a great example of contemporary prog rock. And I absolutely hear that, and I absolutely love it. They also have a harder edge, almost Dream Theater metallic style sound, but don't really sound anything like Dream Theater. Just the fact that they bring kind of a metal edge to their prog sounds. I think they have a bit of a Gentle Giant flavor with their eclectic nature and willing to do things that are a bit off the beaten path but still sound pleasant to the ears. And they have kind of almost a poppy aesthetic, especially in the vocals. and that kind of folk flavor like Fleet Foxes or something along those lines. And it just is all fantastically realized on this record. I think this is the peak of what they've put out. This is their third record. And I think their records just keep getting progressively better. This one just has better production values. It sounds clean. It's just really full in the makes and has this great blend to it. And everything just works perfectly well. It doesn't overstay its welcome, and it's fantastic. Their first album was The Fruit Fallen in 2008, and then they progressed from there with Years in the Garden of Years from 2016, and then we get this record in 2025. So pretty big gaps between these albums, 8 years between the first and second, and now this one is like 9 years between the previous album. Hopefully they come out with something new quicker than that in the next instance, because I'm really curious to see what they put out next. They've catapulted into the top echelons of my favorite bands lists, and I'm excited to follow the band and be a massive fan of what they produce and put out there. So glad to have a physical copy as well. The CD is fantastic, and I wish it was out on vinyl maybe in the future, but I don't see any plans for that as of yet. But a fantastic record that I couldn't recommend more to all fans of progressive rock. So please check it out. Hopefully you enjoyed this review. Let me know in the comments below. And let me know your thoughts if you've heard the record. And I'd be very curious to know if everyone's digging this one as much as I have. So thank you guys so much for joining me. Hopefully you'll stick around on the channel for future reviews. I try to put out a review at least once a week. For your guys' interest and to showcase all the great prog that's coming out, more than I can even possibly cover. So thank you guys, and I'll catch you in a future episode. Bye everybody, enjoy the music.